Hey, good morning. Sorry I'm like a couple minutes late. There's a lot. There's so much going on. I thought that I was all prepared and I'm not. I get all my stuff ready to go and then I feel like I'm all ready and then I'm gathering my notes and opening all the tabs I need and then I'm like, "Oh crap." And I panic and it's like my OCD. It has problems. Perfectionism problems. I'm working on that. Hey, animal lover. Hey, wait, what? Hi, Karma. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Lisbeth. So I found 3 letters from Dawn. I'm assuming that's all of them. There's like 2 to Summer. Okay, there's 1 letter to Summer. And then there's a second letter that's a prayer and a letter to Summer, like mashed in one. And then there's a third one that's the letter to the kidnappers. Am I missing any beside those 3? Because I hope not. That's what we're gonna be talking about today, are the letters, because that's pretty much where we're up to. Um, June, March, April, May, June, July, August of 2022. We're in mid 2022, and that's where all this goes down. And I could have sworn that there were multiple channels that did statement analysis on the letters, but I'm having the hardest time finding them. I did find one. I've watched 1.5 of the videos. I am iffy. I'm on board with some of the things the guy says, but then I'm not so much on the others. And there's something that comes up that I really want to have a conversation about, sort of as a sidebar. But the first thing we're going to do, because I want to sort of lay out the land before we get back into this. And you guys have been here, if you've been here for a long time, you're going to know exactly where we're going. We're going to be talking about Irving Goffman and his theory about dramaturgy. Remember dramaturgy? We haven't talked about that for so long. But I think it's important because it applies so well to Dawn. So I thought we could do a refresher on that and before we do the letters, because that way, hopefully, we can walk through and see how it's going to apply. So I went into AI and I'm like, if I asked it, I'm like, if you were going to explain dramaturgy to someone who knows nothing about it, who's never heard about it, who is not doesn't have like a education in sociology, what would you say? So the AI wrote this out. I filled in some of the blanks. So this came out in 1959. There was a book that he put out. It's called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. I got it at a thrift store, but it's not that long. It's only 250 pages, but it's really, really super interesting. Um, this whole theory was based on Shakespeare. All the world is a stage, we're just actors. That's where he got this from, this idea. If you're into that sort of thing, it's a fun book to read. Um, and it's very interesting because even though it was written in 1959, you can still apply the same concept today. So this is what the AI told me. The theory is about impression management. There's a number of sociologists who have theories that fall into this category. But impression management is about controlling how others see us. Imagine life as a giant stage play, and we're all actors, not in a fake lying sense, but in the way we present ourselves to others. We have a front stage. Sometimes people call it a front region, but it's all whatever. And on the front stage, the version of ourselves we show the world, where we follow social scripts, we wear our costumes and try to give the right impression. In the front stage, people adjust what they say and do to fit the role they want others to see. And if you guys remember, the example that I always use is a woman who's married and has children and is a doctor, and the switching of the hats, right? So when she's at home in the morning and she's making breakfast or something, she's a wife and a mom, and then she goes to work and she takes off the wife and mom hat, she puts on her doctor hat, and then she plays doctor all day, and then she goes back home and off comes the doctor hat and on goes the mom and wife hat. And it's not always necessarily about lying and faking it. Hey, Twister, it can be. It can be. It can be about being manipulative, but it doesn't have to be. So I continued on asking about lies because we've talked about types of lies. Remember the super secret lie that you keep in your back pocket in case you need it? So in order to control how people see us. It might mean omitting truths, exaggerating positives, or outright lying if it helps maintain the desired image. Now, he doesn't lay a lot of shade on this. It's more of a tool that someone would use to maintain their image. In Goffman's view, facts are just one part of a performance. The storyline we present is often edited to suit the audience. Lies can be part of the script. It's not like Candace's script. This is the script of life we create when the truth would disrupt the role we're trying to play. And then we have a backstage or a back region. This is the private space where we drop the act, we relax, we maybe say or do things we'd never do in public. Hey, Mama Bear. The backstage is where the unfiltered version of ourselves exists. Lies usually happen when the backstage reality and the front stage performance don't match. So we use deception to cover that gap. And basically, every social interaction is like a little performance. So right now, we're all on the stage, and I am the creator and I'm presenting information. That's my hat. And you guys are in the audience and you're listening, and that's your hat. That's your job. Hey, radio guys. Does this kind of sort of make sense a little bit? If you Google the presentation of self in everyday life, you'll get a wiki page that sort of dissects this. So we choose our words, our tone, our body language, and even facial expressions based on the audience we're playing to, whether that's our boss, our friends, a stranger. And just like in theater, we rely on props like our clothes, a car, a social media, and the settings like home, work, church to help support the role we're playing. We're not fake just because we act differently in different situations. It's human nature to adapt to the audience and the setting. But it can be shady and fake. Doesn't always have to be, but it can be. There are people who act, I mean, the whole idea is that people are actively, consciously, 24/7 going through this in their mind. Like they never not think about it. And it's an active, ongoing process of how you're controlling. So a great example to distinguish the front and the backstage would be like eating ice cream. If I go out to eat dinner or something with friends and I'm at the restaurant, I'm going to eat ice cream from a dish or a bowl or whatever. But at home, I eat ice cream out of the container because I hate dirtying dishes and I'm the only one that eats that ice cream. So I'm not going to go to the restaurant and eat ice cream from a big container of ice cream because it's not appropriate. That's a way to manage my impression. It's impression management in a nutshell. So I asked, this is my question, I asked AI, how could one apply the theory of dramaturgy to Don Wells? Because it's perfect. This is like a perfect thing. So here's what it says. It's a little bit long. If we applied Goffman's dramaturgy to Don Wells, we'd basically be looking at him as an actor managing different audiences, each with its own version of Don, rather than as someone who is the same in every setting. Basically, what it's saying is Don, okay, let me give you a one step backward. The theory also implies that people are never one thing. They're always fluid, that there's never one version per se. There's multiple versions, and whichever one someone is using depends on where they are and who they're around and that kind of thing. It's just this fluid thing. There's never sort of a continuous solid identity. So here's how it plays out. We have the stage and the audience. On the front stage, this is Don's interviews, his church settings, public letters, TV appearances. Here, his role is the grieving, devoted father, full of emotion, faith, and promises to never give up. He uses props like letters, Bible references, family photos, costumes like his work clothes, religious imagery. I think at one point he did an interview with Summer with a t-shirt of Summer's face on it, and scripts like the repeated I love you lines that reinforce that role. We'll get to this repeated I love you thing shortly. And then the backstage. This would be where Don is in private conversations, moments without cameras, interactions with close confidants. I consider, even though YouTube should be a front stage thing, I consider it a backstage thing for Don. I don't think that Don puts on a show on YouTube necessarily. I think Don is just acting backstage Don. That's my personal opinion, which kind of goes against the expectation. One would expect him to try to control his impression on YouTube, but he doesn't seem to do that. Backstage is where the inconsistencies might show, where he may express frustration, shift blame, or talk about Summer in ways that don't match the public image. Number 2, impression management. Don appears to tailor his language depending on who he thinks the audience is. This is really, really important when we're going to talk about the letters and the audience, because you're going to want to focus on. So he'll say this letter is to Summer, but as we read through it, you're going to be like, is this really to Summer? Because it doesn't feel like it, as a spoiler. So if his audience is the public or investigators, he's going to emphasize devotion, helplessness, religious morality, all which projects innocence and moral high ground to the possible abductors, if he actually believes that. He frames God's wrath or accountability as a moral warning to himself. His letters, to himself, when he's talking to himself, his letters often serve as self-reassurance, reinforcing his role as the good father who never gave up, a way of protecting his own self-image. The performance often over-focuses on his own emotional suffering, which could be an intentional way to direct the audience's emotional energy towards him instead of the circumstances of Summer's disappearance, which we all know. Basically, what it's saying is that he makes everything all about Dawn. Hey, jack of all trades, hi, clipped wings. Do you know what I'm saying? Rather than it being a letter to Summer and it actually is about Summer, it's all about Dawn. And that's essentially what it's getting at. So with regards to scripts and editing, in dramaturgy, editing the script is a form of impression management. We'll talk about this when we get there. There's some words that Don marks out in his letters that are very interesting. And what the AI decided was that those like real-time edits would be an example of him actively editing his script. And we'll get there. It's very interesting. His interviews often contain repeated phrases and stock emotional lines, almost like he's rehearsed certain parts for maximum effect. Audience segmentation. We have investigators. So he gives partial cooperation, sometimes with deflection or vague responses. When it comes to the public, he uses heavy emotion and faith-based framing to build sympathy and align with a certain moral image. But keep in mind, this is all supposed to be an active thing that someone is actively doing, not with the goal of actually being this. They just have the goal of making people think that that's what they are. This is why it fits so well with Dawn. So with regards to family or community, his role shifts towards protector or wronged parent, sometimes accompanied by defensive anger. Goffman would say this is multiple performances on multiple stages with different props and scripts for each. So then it concluded, I thought it was interesting, this AI concluded with a last option here. Why dramaturgy fits Dawn so well. Dramaturgy doesn't assume someone is lying. It assumes everyone is managing impressions. But in Dawn's case, the visible gaps between the front stage and the backstage, the way his tone, word choice, and focus shift depending on the audience are exactly what Goffman would point to as the work of maintaining a role under pressure. The more someone works to maintain a role, the more we look for slips in the performance, moments when the backstage self leaks into the front stage. I know that's a whole lot. You might have to rewatch this later on, but I wanted to get a lay of the land here. So keeping all of that in mind, we're not actually going to be watching Don talking, but you can tell a whole lot by the way he writes, the things he puts down. There's some locations on some of the letters where he's marked out words, and it's very interesting, a marking out of the certain words and what that might mean. And just generally speaking, the way he writes. So that's what we're going to do. So I wrote up my own analysis on these letters. Like I say, two of them, there's a guy who does a statement analysis, and I watched it, and I'm okay with it, but I'm not completely there. Well, where should we start? Let's start with, I think this is the one that he doesn't do. Okay, we'll start with this one. So I typed it out. I typed it out verbatim. All three of them I typed out verbatim with the incorrect spelling and the lack of punctuation. Don does this thing. So, okay. So two of the letters are in kind of really fancy cursive writing, and then the third letter is in print, and he has this random capitalization thing going on. I will show you that, but that's a place where I'm iffy on this. What statement analysis would say, I'm not on board with because of my own personal experience, but we'll get there. So when I typed this out, this is from the fancy uh, handwriting one. Let me see if this is it. Yes, this is it. All right, I'm going to show this to you first. This is the letter. It's all fancy writing, right? On the cursive. You can see here that he wrote um, the word just and he marks it out. And one of place of particular interest is the bottom, where he says always, which is spelled wrong, but doesn't matter. Always and forever, your earthly dad. And then you can see he has a mark through that. But it's not the same kind of mark through as he did on the word just. See, if you look up here, he really scratches out the word just. But if you look down here where he wrote the word dad, it's like a single line strike through. And then he wrote father. So he changed it from always and forever your earthly dad to always and forever your earthly father, which is interesting, and we'll get there. There's a couple of things. I know that he misspells words. I don't think there's anything shady about that. I think that that's just, he's not the greatest speller in the world. I wouldn't say that there's anything more to that, personally. And that's where one of the issues I have with the writing of stuff comes in with regards to that. So the letter reads, Dear Summer, I don't know if there's even the remotest chance of you ever seeing this letter, but I'm going to write it. And then just is in there, right? But I'm just going to write it, but he marks it out. But I'm going to write it just hoping you will. I think he was about to say just in case, but okay. First of all, I want you to know that I love you with all my heart. I've never missed someone as much as I miss you. My heart aches constantly, and then the thought of someone mistreating you puts so much anguish and fear for you that I can barely breathe, and it's spelled wrong, at times. I beg God for your life and break out in tears constantly. I'm very glad I got to spend 5 years with you, but now my life always feels like rain, snow, and drizzle never ending. You are the highlight of my entire miserable existence on this earth. I love you, Summer, with every fiber of my being, sweetheart. I love you and I will never give up on you. And one day I will see you again, always and forever, your earthly. And then we just talked about this, the dad and the father marking out situation. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot. So I have it broken down. I tried to sort of maintain what we were already doing before. Let me see here. Yeah, it's not this one. Okay. So I wrote it out like I've been doing when we've been doing other statement stuff. So we'll see how this goes. So the text in black is his words verbatim, and then anything I highlighted in orange or red are things that I am trying to remember for myself, and then my blue text is me thinking out loud on paper. So the first part, I don't know if there's even the remotest chance of you ever seeing this letter, but I'm going to write it just, and then it goes away, hoping you will. So the beginning, I don't know if. This is an extreme qualifier. It sets the tone for the whole letter. And you could pretty much say that the tone of the letter is that Dawn doesn't actually believe that Summer's ever going to read it. Even though it says, Dear Summer, it's questionable. So then the question becomes, who is the actual audience that he's actually writing this for? Because this reads like a disclaimer. It says it's written to Summer, but it's almost like an out. Like he's using Summer and her disappearance as a way to communicate to the real audience that he's really trying to talk to. He's basically using Summer and her situation to get to somebody else, whether it's the public, the investigators, or whoever he's actually trying to talk to. I believe it's the public that he thinks wronged him. Then it continues on. First of all, I want you to know that I love you with all my heart. I've never missed someone as much as I miss you. Now, there's a repetition of I love you in this letter. The repetition of I love you is common, but the frequency can sometimes be used to compensate or convince rather than convey. It's something that we're going to watch for, but it's one of those things where you make a note of. You can't judge it yet. You make a note of it and you come back later. Um, so when he says never missed someone as much, puts the focus on his feelings again rather than on Summer. Hey, Millie, I'm so glad you're here. And that's a constant theme. All about Dawn, not about Summer. The use of Summer and her situation to convey and portray his personal problems. He does it a lot. Then he goes on. My heart aches constantly. And then the thought of someone mistreating you puts so much anguish and fear for you that I can barely breathe, misspelled, at times. I beg God for your life and break out in tears constantly. So we've got constantly twice. Here we've got strong imagery. He's like, I can barely breathe, all this anguish, I break out in tears. It's all very dramatic, right? And think about the role he's playing. He's supposed to be playing the role of a grieving father with a missing child. Like he's, having to go through the worst experience ever. As a sidebar to this, I have a really hard time with this because can you imagine being one of the boys and reading this from your dad to your sister? I mean, if it was me, and it's just me, if it was personally me and I was one of the boys, I would be offended. I would feel like crap. I would feel like he didn't love me. I would feel less than. I would feel like my sister was loved more than me. I mean, all a bunch of negative emotions about that. I don't see any way that the boys would take this in a positive fashion. But whatever. I guess it is what it is. So again, we have him pulling God into this, and it fits into his known pattern of evoking God. He does it a lot. Then it goes on. I'm very glad I got to spend 5 years with you, but now my life always feels like snow, rain, and drizzle never ending. It's interesting that he gives a time frame. Because he's giving a time frame, it's almost like uh he's created this separation in time. If you guys remember my belief about Crystal Rogers and how Brooks created a separation in time with the birth of Eli, it's the same kind of idea. So he's like, okay, there's this time that we had Summer, and then there's the time after Summer. It's as though he's closed the chapter on the book. Like he's no longer continuing the story. He's like, well, that's done. Next book. And this weather metaphor thing, it's interesting because those are rain, snow, and drizzle. That's when it would be cold and cloudy and dark and bleak and that sort of thing. So you could align that with hopelessness. But also there's no reference to the storm passing. He says it's never ending. Like it just goes on and on forever. His life. His life always feels like that. But what about the boys? What about the boys? This one. Ugh. You are the highlight of my entire miserable existence on this earth. Don frames his entire existence as miserable, which is like self-pity. In statement analysis, this could be a guilt marker. A guilt marker in statement analysis is a word or phrase or pattern of language that can signal the speaker or writer is experiencing internal guilt, not necessarily proof of wrongdoing, but an indication that something they've said or done is weighing on them. Twister says, I wonder if Dawn might have a disability like autism. I know I can't roll my eyes enough either. I have a personal opinion about Dawn and his writing habits. That's coming up. We'll eventually get there with the misspelling and there's weird capitalization and whatnot, but it's hard to explain it until I finally show it to you. Then we go on again. I love you, Summer, with every fiber of my being, sweetheart. I love you and I will never give up on you. And one day I will see you again. And we have the repetition of I love you. So this is the third time. And just as a reminder, I'm going to switch over here. This is the size of the letter. This is the totality of the letter. And he's used I love you 3 times. The one day I will see you again. It's very confident. He says, I know I'm going to do it rather than I hope, but he doesn't specify how he's going to see her again. And that's where we have to consider Dawn's history of the resurrection and the use of the resurrection. I believe that that's what he's referring to here when he says, "I know I'll see you, one day I'll see you again." I think that he's thinking of the resurrection because it's almost the same wording, slightly. And then it ends with always and forever, your earthly dad. And then there was that one strike through. Um, and then it's father. So dad crossed out, replaced with father. The changing from dad, which dad is personal, intimate, often used by children, kind of a casual thing, to father, which is formal, authoritative, almost distancing. It's very stuffy. And, there aren't a lot of people that, there are some, but there aren't a lot that say, hey, my father did this. Hi, father, how are you? Right? It's interesting. The fact that he sort of crossed it out, not fully removed it like the word just, the fact that he sort of crossed it out suggests ambivalence. Like he couldn't decide which role he wanted to present to her or the audience. Think of Goffman, right? He's like, should I be the father or should I be the dad? Do I want to sound noble and formal and whatever, or do I want to sound casual like a dad? So he's struggling there. Which hat do I put on in closing that letter? Hey, Appy Blue. So when I plopped the letter into the AI, this is what it said. This is from the AI. Overall observations. This letter is emotionally heavy but factually empty. There's no search details, no pleas to the public, no encouragement to a potential captor to release her. The emotional focus is 90% on him, his suffering, his feeling, his life, which can indicate either self absorption or an intentional framing to control public perception. Crossed out words like just and dad are fascinating because they show in the moment editing, meaning he was aware of how the words might be received. The weather metaphor, the miserable existence, and the repeated I love you suggest a mix of grief, hopelessness, and performative emotionality. See what I'm this is why I wanted to talk about Goffman before we started. Because you see, this is like if I was going to say, if someone was going to say, give me an example of what dramaturgy is, I'd be like Don Wells. Don Wells. That would be my answer. So that's the first one. And the videos that are coming up, the guy didn't do that. He didn't do that letter. I don't know why. So let's see. We'll start with this one. So I have it written out, and then the plan is to pull up the guy's video that does the statement analysis, and we'll kind of go through there and critique it and to see. He's a very slow talker, so I'm going to speed it up a bit. So this is the letter. I wrote it out again verbatim. It's very interesting the way that it's written. Let's see if I can. Well, okay, we'll do this. This is the video we're going to watch. This is the letter right here, if you can see this very well. It's no longer cursive. There is random capitalization throughout that thing. It's very interesting. Let me see if I can find see, where did I put that? Dawn's letter to Summer. I know I have there. Nope, that's not it. No, I have one somewhere. I can't find it. So he's going to talk about this. He's going to talk about this random capitalization stuff. So when I typed it out, I typed it exactly like he wrote it. Okay. Just so you know. So it begins with a letter and prayer for Summer. So again, we're going to say, who is he actually writing this to? I know that there's misspelled words and things. Since you've been gone, I've been completely devastated. I looked everywhere for you, my beautiful girl. I thought YouTube would be the most powerful tool to help find you, and perhaps it still could be, but at a price we may not be able to afford. Our family may not survive. I'm sorry, my beautiful girl, that I completely lost my mind. With so many thoughts of people harming you, and I know you want to come home, and there's nothing I can do. I'm powerless. So I ask God, please look over my precious daughter. We love her so much. We wish, God, you will return her to us as well as the boys. I would be so happy to be a family again. And then he writes the Lord's Prayer with some misspellings. And then he ends it with thanks, Don Wells. Like, thanks, Don Wells. It's I I don't understand it. I don't understand it. So this situation, the misspellings, I don't think they mean anything, honestly. I think he just doesn't know how to spell the word beautiful. Beautiful is kind of a hard word to, to get right. But you guys can see the capitalizations through here. And they're primarily on the letters W, L, and F. So it's not like it's random. It's repeatedly the same couple of letters. And that's going to come up in the video. That came up when I tried to use my textbooks and I ran the analyzing on this thing too. I have a problem with this, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So, the first part, since you've been gone, I've been completely devastated. There's this dramatic capitalization here and throughout, right? Like I just talked about. Now, statement analysis would say that it suggests erratic emotional energy, like he's trying to show impact, but it feels uncontained. And it's supposed to be content driven. And then there's the misspelling of devastated. But overall, what it's trying to get to is that it sets the tone as unstable, reactive, and overwhelmed. And the questions that I had were things like, what about his lack of formal education, presumably? Maybe a lack of writing experience. Maybe he's doing the best he can given his educational status or intellectual level and the tools that he has at hand. And then I did some looking about people who write this way with well, not random, but continually capitalizing letters that aren't supposed to be. And what I'd found was it said a lot of people, especially older men from rural or working class backgrounds, were never taught to write in a way that matches school standards. That doesn't mean they're unstable, deceptive, or emotionally flooded. It just means writing isn't their medium. The reason that I have such a hard time with this personally, so I'm left-handed, and which is it is what it is. My handwriting is horrible, is horrific. When I was in elementary school, I grew up in a small town, tiny little rural town, and I was the only left-handed kid in my school, in my elementary school. And the teachers did not like that. They thought there was something wrong with me. They would mark my work down. They would score my work less because my handwriting wasn't like the right-handed kids. I had a teacher in 3rd grade when we were learning how to write cursive. She would come around and rip the pencil out of my left hand and shove it into my right hand and tell me if I don't use my right hand, she was going to fail me, like for the 3rd grade. So when I was in elementary and I was learning how to write, I was writing under duress. So as an adult now, when I write kind of half in cursive and half in print, and I do use capitalized letters in places they're not supposed to be. But I do that because that's how I write. But I also do that because I learned during elementary school how to write a certain way so that it was legible enough so I didn't get in trouble. And so when I hear this, because it comes up in the video, when I hear him talking about this erratic emotional energy that's supposed to be interpreted from this capitalization problem, I don't have erratic emotional energy when I'm writing. I write that way because I was put through the ringer. Hey, Alley Cat, if that makes sense. So that's what I wanted to pose out to you guys. If you think that that it would be indicative that he was somehow emotionally hyped up and that his thoughts were scattered, or if it's just the way he writes. I personally believe that's just the way he writes. But see, I'm sort of contaminated because I went through horrible things and I write terribly and that's what I do. Not because I'm erratic emotionally. It's just how I learned. If Don didn't learn proper cursive or print, he's going to write that way too. Hi, Alley Cat. Hey, crow's feet. So I don't know. We'll go through that. It'll come up in the video. You can tell me what you think. Then it goes on. I looked everywhere for you, my beautiful girl. And of course, we have it spelled wrong. The phrase everywhere is vague. It lacks specific action or detail. There's no mention of search locations or law enforcement or timelines. This is so interesting. I thought YouTube would be the most powerful tool to help find you. His first detailed action that he names, out of everything that he could, he decides to use YouTube. Not the flyers, not the searches, not law enforcement, nothing like that. He thinks that YouTube would be the number one tool to find Summer. He doesn't say, I hope the police would find you. He says he thought YouTube would be powerful, and that implies his focus was more on visibility, the platform or medium, and maybe even public narrative, other, other than like direct recovery. And again, it goes back into my belief that he's doing heavy impression management big time. And his focus is on public and how public perceives him. Then it goes on, and perhaps it still could be, but at a price we may not be able to afford, our family may not survive. Here's the fallout because of YouTube, all because of YouTube. This is the cost to his life. So Don still believes YouTube might be able to help, but at the cost of the family. It's not about Summer, it's about the family because of public backlash. Not about Summer's survival, about the family's backlash or the public backlash against Don and the family. So again, he shifts the focus from Summer to himself and the family. Then he goes on, I'm sorry, my beautiful girl, is spelled wrong, doesn't matter, that I completely lost my mind. I'm sorry, my beautiful girl, that I completely lost my mind. Completely is a qualifying word. It's a qualifier. Hey, Lil Wing. Qualifier. I think that, so Twister says, sounds like Tim is writing it for him. I think Tim wrote the ones that are in cursive. That's my personal opinion. I think that Don gave the structure of the letter, and then I think Tim tried to fill it in with some fluff to make it look better. So this sounds like a confession, but it's vague. He lost his mind. Like when, how, what did it look like? What does he mean he lost his mind? We don't get specifics, but we get the capitalized completely. And this is where it's going to go again with the capitalization and its interpretation of that, which I just don't go there. And then it tries to give an offer, like an alternative idea here. Could be a subconscious way of preemptively excusing erratic behavior. So it all goes back to this erratic thing. I just can't with it. But the fact that he says, I completely lost my mind. I don't understand. It's a weird phrasing. Then he continues, with so many thoughts of people harming you, and I know you want to come home. I know you do. Let me highlight that in red. I know you want to come home, and there's nothing I can do. I'm powerless. Here he acknowledges the intrusive thoughts of harm again. But again, he doesn't center Summer. He centers it on his own fears and how it's affecting him and not about her. The sentence overall is messy. He loops emotions together. I know you want to come home. How could he know this? It's very manipulative. How can he know that? I know that. Appy Blue says, I never thought of that, but now I do tend to agree. About the capitalization. Oh, let me back up to your first comment. I assume proper grammar isn't necessary in his line of work, no offense. My dad was a farmer, carpenter, and he couldn't read or write well, right? My grandpa, all of my grandparents and great-grandparents, they were all farmers, and they, all of them, wrote in, that fancy cursive that they taught in like the, I don't know, 30s or something. What was that called? The Palmer School of Handwriting, something. And it's really hard for me to read that because it's all loopy and all kinds of stuff. And but then when he would print, if he was printing and not writing in cursive, it was almost always capital letters. Yeah, right. Isn't it called the Palmer method? I swear to God, that's right. Palmer method of cursive. Yes. Give me a description here. Doesn't really say, but it had a whole lot of loops, and I mean, it was pretty fancy. Okay. But anyhow, I know you want to come home is interesting. I don't know how he knows that. So I ask God, please look over my precious daughter. We love her so much. We wish God, see God and God, You will return her to us as well as the boys. I would be so happy to be a family again. So now we're in prayer mode. Cue the prayer and the God name dropping. He asks God to look over Summer, but he pivots immediately to the boys and a desire to be a family again. What should be a focus on Summer, if you've forgotten, this letter is supposed to be to Summer. It's supposed to be written to her. He lumps in everything that's been lost, the custody, the public image, whatever, his desire to be a family again. We get that, but it centers on his grief, his problems, all about Dawn, nothing about Summer. And to be quite honest, do you think that a little 5-year-old girl is going to want to hear this nightmare of stuff? I mean, then he does the Lord's Prayer. This is weirdly, oddly formal when he says, please bow for the Lord's Prayer. It's weird. It's as if he switched from writing to Summer to writing to an audience, like leading a congregation. Like all of a sudden he's the pastor or the minister. This shift reinforces the idea that the letter isn't purely private or father to daughter. It's actually meant to be seen. But who is the audience really? Who is he putting on that costume for? Who is he trying to be? And then there isn't too much about this specifically about the Lord's Prayer other than the capitalization things and a couple of misspellings. Introducing this entire prayer in full takes up almost like 2/3 of the page, is interesting. This could be an act of comfort for himself or self-serving, public performance, a substitution for emotional words he can't or doesn't know how to express for himself, and so forth. It is an interesting thing to put in there. And then that is the end of this is what's missing. Any direct imagery of Summer, specific memories of her, their bond, their shared experience, any detailed description of the search beyond I looked everywhere, missing statements of hope or belief in her return, vague pleas to God. He claims powerlessness throughout and that lack of clarity about what he means with losing his mind. So that's where I got with that. So now we have a choice here. We can watch the video from this guy. I'm going to speed it up though. Or we can move on to the next letter. He's kind of interesting to listen to if you guys want to do that. Where did you guys go? There you are. My plan was to watch it about the same exact letter. He has a different take on several things. Sometimes similar, sometimes different to mine. I still have a problem with the capitalization. Let's do it. We'll work through this. If we get a couple minutes in and it's not beneficial, we'll move on. How's that sound? Good? Oh, Dawn's letters. Okay. I'm going to mute, and in order to comply with YouTube's rules, we'll have to pause this throughout and discuss, but that's okay.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another edition of the Truth to Lies podcast. Let's talk about the Summer Wells case. As most of you know, Dawn Wells is currently in custody for unrelated charges. And we recently had the first anniversary of the disappearance of his daughter, Summer, 5-year-old Summer. She was 5 years old when she disappeared. And Dawn.
Just so you know, I've got this running on 1.25. If we need to make it go faster, we can.
Issued a letter that he said is addressed to Summer, a letter to Summer and a prayer. And this whole case is an interesting case. It's still ongoing. Summer still has not been found. Investigators are working tirelessly, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the Sheriff's Office. And it's a case that really needs to be resolved. There's a lot of people out there in the public and in the local community there that are really concerned for Summer and her welfare. With that being said, in this letter that her father issued, there's a couple of things that we want to look at. I'm going to show you the letter, and I'm going to read it to you as well. And there's some questions that we're going to have regarding this letter. I mentioned that there's a lot of concern for Summer. Well, we want to know from the letter, what is her father's, Dawn's linguistic disposition towards Summer? what does he reveal in his language? And we want to know, what is the priority of this letter? So when people write or speak, oftentimes, well, almost all the time, their priorities will be revealed, and their disposition towards others that are mentioned within their language. There's a lot of things that are revealed. And so we want to know, what is the priority of DW's letter? Who is he writing to? Okay. And what is the linguistic disposition towards Summer? Why include the Lord's Prayer in this?
He refers to Dawn as DW throughout his videos that I have found, just FYI.
In this letter, he includes the Lord's Prayer. What's the purpose of that? Why would he include that? And what other traits might be revealed in his handwriting? It's a handwritten letter. And so from the handwriting, we can actually see some traits that he has that he's revealing. Okay, so let me read you the letter, and you can follow along. So at the top of the letter, he wrote, "A letter and prayer for Summer. Since you've been gone, I've been completely devastated. I looked everywhere for you, my beautiful girl, ! I thought YouTube would be the most powerful tool to help find you, and perhaps it still could be, but at a price we may not be able to afford. Our family may not survive! I'm sorry, my beautiful girl, that I completely lost my mind! With so many thoughts of people harming you, and I know you want to come home, and there's nothing I can do. I'm powerless! So I ask God, please look over my precious daughter. We love her so much. We wish, God, you will return her to us, as well as the boys. I would be so happy to be a family again." And then he exclamation that. Next line, "Please bow for the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespass." And then he wrote an S over the D in trespass. But the first thing he wrote was trespass. "As we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Thanks." And he signs it, Don Wells. Okay, so from that, we want to answer those questions. What is the priority of the letter? Who is he writing to? What is his linguistic disposition towards Summer? Why include the Lord's Prayer? And what other traits are revealed? So I'm going to break this down rather quickly. And I broke it down a little line by line, well, most lines. And if you're looking at this on the video, you probably noticed that there are a lot of words that are misspelled, and there are a lot of capital letters where they don't belong. In the middle of words, at the beginning of words that don't need to be capitalized. So there's a lot of erratic behavior in the handwriting. Okay, so I'll just tell you now that relates to erratic thoughts in the author's mind. All right, so that's one thing. So he wrote, "Since you've been gone, I've been completely devastated."
So I know that that's his take. Obviously, we kind of talked about this, but like I say, I'm not completely on board with that because I write that way. I write that way, but I'm not how he describes it. I'm not saying that Dawn's not, but I can see both sides of it at this point.
So who's the focus of this? Well, the focus is Don and his well-being, his emotions, what he's been experiencing. The focus is not at all what Summer has been experiencing. He's focused on his own welfare, not Summer. Okay, so I find that a little disturbing. I know that the letter is just beginning, and so I look to see if this continues or if it gets better. I hope it gets better, as I analyze it line by line. But it doesn't look like it's going to. And from what we just read, it doesn't look like it. So, and also it wasn't enough to just say that I've been devastated. He had to qualify that. He said, I've been completely devastated. And when people when people qualify, use qualifiers like this, it's typically it shows a need to persuade. It's a need to convince. And it shows that by just saying I'm devastated or I've been devastated, it wasn't enough for him. So we had to qualify it. All right. So it's okay to have a qualifier. We all use them, but we want to see if, we take this into context. Why qualify this? And in conjunction with him not being concerned for Summer's well-being, it's his own well-being. It's a convincing statement that he is completely devastated or has been completely devastated. Okay, so I hope you're seeing what's going on here. Then he says, I looked everywhere for you, my beautiful girl. So the focus is still on him, what he did. He doesn't go into any detail. He just says he looked everywhere. So that also implies that since he has looked everywhere, there's nowhere else to look. It's been done. And in a way, he is trying to absolve himself of the responsibility to look anywhere further. He's already looked everywhere. And so this is an absolving statement right here. The implication is that there's nowhere else to look. And if he's looked everywhere, then the authorities, they have nowhere to look either, because it's already been covered by him.
Okay, how are we feeling thus far? I hope that by starting with Goffman today, that I was able to lay a good enough place. The direction that I want to go is looking at Don that way. Aside from analyzing his statements and his words, using Don as an example for dramaturgy, perfection. Millie says the Lord's Prayer is beautiful, but you'd think he would have used his own prayer. Yes. For example, pray for Summer's safety and her return. Right. Yeah, I agree. I thought not only was the inclusion of the prayer interesting, odd, weirdly odd, the fact that it was the majority of the letter is also interesting, but it had nothing to do specifically with Summer. Like nothing. But then the whole letter had really nothing to do with Summer. I think that it's my opinion that it's my opinion based off personal experiences that I've had in my life, that what Don was doing was trying to sound like he knows stuff about religion, and he really has a very shallow understanding of God and the Bible. And so we're going to say, oh, look here, I'm going to recite a prayer to you. But could he create his own prayer without having to resort to copying something? And why pick that one? Like, why pick the Lord's Prayer for that type of letter? I'm not sure.
Then he says, I thought YouTube, and he says, and it's a U/tube, would be the most powerful tool to help find you. And perhaps it still could be, but at a price we may not be able to afford. Our family may not survive. Okay, so this sentence is it's obviously not intended for Summer. This is a sentence that is intended for the public. This is a message for the public. And in a subtle way, he's blaming YouTube, okay? And he's saying his family might not survive if he uses what he deems as the most powerful tool to find Summer. And I want you to note, as he says this, with his subtle blaming, that he has excluded Summer from his family, saying, I thought that YouTube might be the most powerful tool to help find you, but our family might not survive. And so it's he's separated her. She's over there, and then we have our family. And so in his mind, there's a separation there between Summer and what's left of his family. And that's disturbing. So, like I mentioned, it's a form of victim blaming. Utilizing YouTube to find Summer is at fault if his family.
That's interesting that he brings up that his belief is that Don is victim blaming Summer, because when we were listening to several of those videos from the news and interviews with Don, that was one of the things that I had brought up, was that it seemed an awful lot like Don, not only does he blame the boys for certain things, but he also blames Summer for disappearing. Like, it's all Summer's fault when he's talking about her going around to the swing and stuff. Elizabeth says, Don Wells has always seemed extremely egocentric to me. This analysis just confirms it. No surprises here. All about Don. He's the victim, the perpetual victim.
He does not survive. There's subtle victim blaming that he would have to utilize YouTube to find her. And so it's making himself out as the victim, not Summer. It's not Summer that's the victim. It's him and our family that might not survive. They're the victims. Also, he's not willing to do everything to find her. So it's a subtle way to tell the public that, hey, I can't really use this more, what I've deemed as the most powerful tool to find my daughter, because my family might not survive. And so he gave a reason why. And so he's saying, I'm not going to look at it. Plus, I've already looked everywhere. There's nowhere else to look. And so what he's subtly implying here is that there's nothing else.
Okay, so I have a thought I want to think out here that I don't know why that it wasn't in my brain before. But so he says that he thinks or thought that YouTube was going to be the most powerful tool to find Summer. It still could be, but some stuff happened that because of YouTube, the family's not going to survive. And so it almost reads like he believes that YouTube could still help, but he's not going to go down that road anymore because it would be at the expense of the family. But at this point, they've already lost the boys. Summer's missing. They've already lost the boys, and they lost the boys because of their own actions. So for him to sort of, in a roundabout way, blame YouTube, it's almost like he's blaming YouTube and the people on YouTube for the choices that he made that got him into this situation to begin with. YouTube could absolutely be beneficial, not the most powerful tool, but a tool if you use it properly, like Brandy. She comes on and she gives information. She is not like Donna Candace. She's using YouTube successfully in the way that she can. So it's not as though YouTube is the problem. It's the person using YouTube that's the problem, i.e. Dawn. Does anybody have a different perspective on that? That's how I would extend the thought for this.
To do. I've already looked. And so in his mind, Summer's not coming home. And that's pretty sad. He says, I'm sorry, my beautiful girl, that I completely lost my mind. Think about that. He says, I'm sorry. That is significant. I want to know what prompted him, what is going on in his mind that makes him say, I'm sorry. It's typically something that comes from someone that has some type of guilty knowledge, or I would like him to say something that,
Don't forget what we talked about guilty knowledge. I'm going to come back in for a minute. Don't forget what we talked about guilty knowledge. I want to go and find that and briefly read that again. Guilty knowledge refers to information that only the perpetrator could know and accidentally reveals either directly or indirectly in their language. However, if you remember, could someone other than the perpetrator have guilty knowledge? Yes. So, for example, somebody who helped cover it up, somebody who was told by the perpetrator about it. They were present when it happened, but they didn't intervene or stop it. They could have been given information privately. They were guessing and they guessed it right by chance. They may have come up with a rehearsed scenario that they believe and they're just trying to put it up. Like Dawn's like, I know she was kidnapped. They were present and didn't know a crime occurred. So guilty knowledge doesn't always necessarily mean 100% that he's got to be the perpetrator. There's this big variety of choices that we could come up with. Sarah says he blames everyone for his own purpose and he's never at fault. Yeah. I know. He blames everyone, including Summer and the boys, which is gross. So for him to sit there and say that he could use YouTube, but it would be at the expense of his family, but he himself is the one that's really been sort of berating the family. Don himself has been the one that's really been dragging on the boys. I know most of us. All right, let me start my sentence over. I know that most of us on YouTube have done everything we could to support the boys and protect them. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk negatively about them. I know that multiple people have come in to defend them and are angry, including myself, that Dawn lays this low-key blame on them. I don't understand. I don't understand why Dawn would do that. He'll blame he'll blame the boys for leaving Summer outside alone over and over. Why doesn't he blame Candace? She was the adult that was supposed to be watching Summer, right? That was the person in charge of Summer. Why is there no blame except for she's got none? Like I got 7 alibis, she's got none. Other than that one event, he's really never come out and blamed Candace like he has the boys. There's nothing that's been said like Candace left her alone over and over again. Can you imagine if he said that? Like if we replaced the sentence where he said the boys left her outside by herself over and over again, what if we replaced the boys with Candace? Candace left her outside over and over and over again. Don would never say that. Absolutely never say that. But why then? Why would he then say it about the boys? If it's not okay to say about Candace, why is it okay to say about the boys? Twister says, I think he feels that Summer being gone, he dodged getting in trouble. Yeah, I can totally see that. I can totally see that, especially with the DCS and stuff. I don't know. I can't. You get what I'm saying about replacing the boys with Candace's name? That would not fly in that household. And what about him himself? Why why should why shouldn't he be to blame about some of the things? Some of the things. I don't know why it's always the boy's fault.
Right after that, I'm sorry, that is very sincere. What he says is, I'm sorry, my beautiful girl, that I completely lost my mind. He doesn't say what he did to lose his mind or what happened. So it's a little ambiguous right here. But this is an indication that he is feeling stress from guilt. Stress that, notice that he didn't say, I'm sorry for not finding you. He's not saying that. I'm sorry for completely losing my mind. It's a psychological pressure relief statement is what it is. He's able to say, I'm sorry, without actually saying, I'm sorry for whatever I did to you, whatever I caused to happen to you. He's not saying that, and he's been being ambiguous about it. And so what does it mean I lost my mind, to lose my mind? I note that he also qualified this as well. This is another qualifier that was employed here.
Yeah, so this is pretty much exactly what I had talked about, the use of completely as a qualifier, the vagueness. I think this sentence is the most important sentence of that entire letter.
I completely lost my mind. So we have the use of the qualifier. He needs to call in reinforcement psychologically, linguistically, to back up what he's saying. It's more of a convincing type statement now. I know that. So I'm wondering, what does the sorry relate to? What does the completely lost his mind relate to? Does it relate to what he did at the time Summer disappeared? Is it a decision perhaps that he made that now he regrets? Something like that. You know, he's not really saying, but it seems like that he's referring back to something. You know, I completely lost my mind. It's something in the past. Okay. Then he says, with so many thoughts of people harming you, and I know you want to come home.
Twister says one day the boys might pay him a visit that he don't want. You know, all of that circus sideshow crap that they've got going on right now on Facebook, the Facebook group that's supposed to be about Summer, that's absolutely got nothing to do with Summer whatsoever, which is irritating to me. I don't know what that they think that they're doing by putting out personal information about the location of one of the boys. That blows my mind. That I cannot get on board with. They are putting that boy in jeopardy, his safety in jeopardy. I understand that they want him back. What about the rest of them, first of all? And what have they done to deserve to get him back? Because right now, currently, I feel like they are harassing him. They're stalking him. They really have they have no rights to him. So, can you just think about this? Let's say that there's person A and then there's person B, and person A has a Facebook group, and this person A is just constantly posting, I can't wait to see you again, and your location and everything about you. And uh, I mean, it's like obsessive to an extent. How do you think person B is going to feel about that? I would be terrified if I was that little boy. No, he's not little. I would be terrified if I was that young man. I would be distraught, upset, psychologically in danger for my well-being. They need to understand that his life is he's moved on, and he's going to be with a family that actually cares about him, doesn't stalk him on Facebook. I think that I heard somebody say that he's had to that that the young man, I'm not going to use his name, that the young man has like been blocking them and blocking their phone number or changing his number or basically actively doing things to get away from them, and they're not leaving him alone. I don't get it. Why would, if you really truly loved your child, why would you not let that child have the best life possible? I don't think that stalking your child is the best life possible. I don't. Twister says, I was adopted and I had a few choice words from my parents. Millie says they need to leave him alone. Absolutely, they do. It's upsetting. Carmen says, Don said himself those boys told him they didn't want to come back, right? Yeah. What, like, when are they going to get the clue? When are they? Okay, it's basically Dawn because Dawn speaks for Candace. But when is Dawn finally going to accept that it's just not going to happen? It's kind of like get over it, go out with somebody else, that kind of thing. It's I don't understand. Why do they want him back anyways? For what purpose? They can't get jobs. According to Dawn, they're unemployable. They still live in the same environment that the boy was removed from. Why would anybody turn over a minor to parents who don't have steady income, who don't have a appropriate place for them to live? I mean, when you are a teenager, do you think that a teenager, you know their house, right? There's no walls to separate the bedrooms that I know of. Do you think that a teenager is going to want to live in a house with the parents where he's got no privacy at all? Do you think that that's okay for a teenager? I just don't get it. It drives me crazy when parents put themselves ahead of their children, and that's 100% what Dawn is doing over and over again. It's like, hey, I know that you left your sister outside all the time. I know that we kept telling you not to do it over and over again. It's all your fault. But hey, come live with me. Hey, Cisco, I don't have any money. I can't really take care of you. You're not going to have a bedroom with a door. But, you know, come on and come back. I mean, there's just the parental rights are all done. It's over. It's done with. They need to leave him alone. All right, let's get back to this. Sorry, I had to rant.
Okay. And he says, with so many thoughts of people harming you, and I know you want to come home, and there's nothing I can do, I'm powerless. I'm powerless. With so many thoughts of people harming you. So he's a lot of thoughts of people harming you. And he doesn't separate this. He just keeps going with it. And I know you want to come home. I know you want to come home. So this comes on the heels of him saying that he's sorry for completely losing his mind. And he introduces the thought, so many thoughts of people harming Summer. And he says, I know you want to come home. So the question is, does he know where she is or where she went? If he knows that she wants to come home, I mean, that would be implied. Why do they need to state that? What's going on in his mind that pushes that out to the pen? And it takes more effort to write than it does to simply state it. That took more effort and time to think about it. So I'm wondering, does this relate to a decision that he made when he completely lost his mind? And now he's saying he's sorry. Remember, he stated previously that he is aware of people that traffic kids. I'm not saying that's what happened. We don't know what happened to Summer, but it sure this really raises some questions that really need to be addressed on what it is that he is sorry for that made him lose his mind, that he's sorry he completely lost his mind.
I have to think out loud for a minute. Elizabeth says if they really loved him as a young man, I think they would write a single letter of apology and wishing him success in his life and then leaving him the fuck alone. Absolutely 100%. So Dawn says, I know. Let me think, how is this working out for me? I know you want to come home. Man. There was a moment in time where I made a notation. Let's see. I know I'll see you again. Remember, where did that come from? Um, was that in the first letter? I'm not going to be able to see you for a minute. Yeah. And I will never give up. And one day I will see you again. So in the first letter that we talked about that this guy didn't review, he makes the statement, and I can't see you. He makes the statement, I love you, Summer, with every fiber of my being, sweetheart. I love you and I will never give up on you. And one day I will see you again. Like, it's not like I hope to. It's not like hopefully I'll see you again. It's I will see you. I will do that. If you lump that into this word about I know you want to come home, that's an interesting combination. That's an interesting math problem. I know you want to come home. There's nothing I can do about that, but I know I'm going to see you again. I don't know where I'm going to go with that thought yet. I need to think that thought out. That's a thinky thought. Appy Blue says, wasn't there a time that they were kind of jealous of him because he didn't want to come home? Right. Yes. And Don made a big to-do about how dare he block his phone number or change the phone number or something like that. Like the young man blocked Don's phone number, Donna Candace's phone number, so they couldn't call anymore. And they were really, really upset about that. And I know you want to come home. There's nothing I can do, but one day I will see you. One day I will see you again. One day I will. I'm going to go. I'm going to go somewhere with that. Let's continue.
What it is that he is sorry for that made him lose his mind. He's sorry he completely lost his mind. Okay. He says, so I ask God, please look over my precious daughter. We love her so much. I know that he slipped from the I ask God, please look over took ownership of her precious daughter. And then he says, we love her so much. So he included other people. We wish God you will return her to us as well as the boys. Okay. I would be so happy to be a family again. It's not we anymore that would be happy to be a family.
I just want to pull up really fast this thing from Peter Hyatt about the use of religion. God. Refresh my memory. So Peter Hyatt said about Dawn, I'm reading, quote, his use of religious imagery indicates an immature understanding, a new understanding, and is likely a reflection of the life he has led, including incarceration. He did not call upon deity to affirm his words in the interviews that I have heard. An immature understanding, a surface level. I call it a surface level understanding of religion. I would equate it to like young children when they just start going to church and maybe they do like a children's Bible study thing and they're just learning the basic stuff like Noah and the Ark and what is some other basic things that, do you know what I'm saying? Like some of the basic, easy to understand sort of stories. I feel like that's where Dawn is at, kind of.
But he would. And it makes me wonder if there's discord between he and Candace. I'd love to be a fly on the wall and know what those conversations have been like, if she visited him, wrote him, what's that been like? Because he wants to be a family, and it's not a we anymore. All right, and so it's significant. Those pronouns are significant. They're powerful. Now, I note that in that what I just read, he evoked deity. He evoked God. So I asked God, please look over my precious daughter. We wish, God, you will return her to us. So who does that? Most of us pray. I pray daily that I don't feel the need to portray myself as a man of God or this good guy. This is what he's doing here. This is the purpose of in publicly putting that out there. This is a letter to the public. That's who the letter is addressed. That's the intended audience is the public. Okay. Summer is the tool to get it out there, to get the information out there. He's going to write a letter to Summer, but he knows that the public is going to get this letter. So he knows that's who is going to read this. And so I want the public to know I'm a good guy. I'm a man of God. In fact, almost a holy man. All right.
I agree 100% with what he's saying right now. 100%. He's explaining it better than I did.
Right. Now, from past conversations that I've listened to of Don, and some of them I've analyzed, and a lot of you have probably seen those. This is Don's MO when he is feeling guilt or deception is in his mind. He portrays himself as a holy man, as a church-going man, and that he prays. And this is typical of his MO. Okay, so that's what he's doing here, and that's the purpose of reciting the Lord's Prayer. And I find it interesting that he says in this letter, "Please bow for the Lord's Prayer." It's like he's portraying himself as a man that can conduct everybody to please bow for the Lord's Prayer that I'm going to pray now. And the way that this is being sent out there to the public, that's where I have a problem with this, is that this is an attempt to, it's a smokescreen, if you will. And it's an attempt to portray himself as somebody that he's not. I hope he prays, and a lot of people pray, and that's great, and I hope he does. And I really hope that he is, comes to, has a come to Jesus moment and asks forgiveness and sincerely and does the right thing and repents. But this is not repentance. This is portrayal of, look at what a good man I am. I'm reciting the Lord's Prayer, and I'm going to ask all of you to recite it with me, which makes me even a better man because I'm bringing all of you to Jesus right now. And so it's a smokescreen, and it's those types of things that we have a problem with. Now, what's the priority of this letter? Here's the question. What's the priority of the letter? Well, it's an attempt at absolving himself. It reveals a need to utter the words, "I'm sorry." But the problem is, he didn't say, "I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry, somebody didn't find you. I couldn't find you." And not anything like that. Is not even really humble in it. But it's for losing his mind, completely losing his mind.
I would really like to know what losing his mind means. I would really like to know that. Twister says he swaps hats a lot in this letter. Yes, he does. And as a reminder again, this letter is supposed to be to Summer. Like, he's supposed to be talking to his child about this. Sister says, this is the first time I've seen this. I swear that there have been multiple people that have analyzed these letters, and I couldn't find anybody else but him. I don't know why. Maybe I was mistaken. But I was thinking about this, about Don's performance in his letter and in his letterers, and how it's almost as if Don is trying really hard to portray himself in a certain way, and he's failing at it, and he repeatedly fails at it, particularly with regards to being this God-fearing, very super religious person. He fails every time he attempts to put out that image. He is unsuccessful. So why is he continually trying over and over again? It's like, don't give up. Or, I mean, if you're trying to manage your impression there, you want to portray yourself as God-fearing and very super religious and a good guy, and you failed the first time and the second time and the 15th time. Why would you keep doing that? Why would you keep doing that? A failed front stage performance. I'm looking in the book. In the book, I paid 75 cents for it. It's an old copy, and so it has that book smell, like a library smell. Okay. It says where a person can't convincingly portray the role they want, it's called a performance breakdown. The mask slips, we've talked about this. Let's see. The energy needed to maintain a role. If the person doesn't have, okay, the person is trying to portray an image. In this case, Don is trying to come off as a good guy who doesn't do anything wrong, and he's a great father figure, and he just happens to be in this horrible situation, and so he's turning to God to sort of protect his daughter and guide him along the way, and he wants everybody to think that I think that he thinks that people who appear religious in nature are the best kinds of people, like for their image. And I think he's trying to be what he thinks is the perfect person. And and essentially what it's saying here is that it takes a lot of energy to play a role, first of all, and it takes even more energy to keep going. Obviously, if you think about it, let's say that you're in an interview and it lasts for 5 minutes. It's different than an hour-long interview. You run out of energy at some point in time. You get tired, especially if you're actively trying to be someone you're not. But then throw in the idea, like, let's say that the person doesn't have the skills to do it, or they are not able to provide consistent information. They might pause in weird ways. They might contradict themselves, and the mask slips off. Apparently, performance breakdown. So then, what in turn would happen is the audience is going to notice this. They're going to notice the contradictions and the slipping of the mask and all the flaws. Um, and then what would happen theoretically is the person on stage would then try to overcompensate. And that's where guilt markers would come in. After a botched performance, the person might blame misunderstandings like that's not what I meant, reframe the role. I'm not perfect, but I'm honest, which John totally did. When he got arrested, he's like, I got into bad stuff, or I let myself get out of control, or I can't remember the exact verbiage on that, but his verbiage was something like, I made some bad choices and I got carried away, and I can't remember. It's like he's trying to reframe it. Yeah, I had a slip up, but I'm good. I promise. In Don Wells' case, I'm going to ask here. In Don Wells' case, what was the verbiage of that? Performance breakdown. So I'm going to say, how does performance breakdown apply to Don Wells? Okay, applying Goffman's theory, of course. His intended role, the front stage role, is supposed to be the heartbroken, God fearing, innocent father who will never stop loving or searching for his daughter. He uses the props like his letters and the Bible references, prayer vigils. He repeatedly says things like, I love you, I'll never give up, name dropping God, this sort of thing to maintain his image. However, the performance starts to fail because the audience, like public, media, investigators, we all notice inconsistencies and dissonance between the role and the behavior. So the emotional tone doesn't match the content. In interviews and letters, he sometimes expresses hostility. That's in the one coming up towards the kidnappers. He says something like God's wrath is good. God's going to come get you, basically. You're in trouble with God. So he expresses this hostility towards the abductor, which completely clashes with this image that he's trying to portray, where he's God-fearing and kind and very super religious and that sort of thing. The self-focus instead of the child focus. He frequently centers his own suffering rather than keeping the spotlight on Summer's well-being. In dramaturgy terms, the actor starts pulling focus from the story, making the audience question their sincerity. Contradictions and shifts in story, changes in timelines, and explanations over time undermine the continuity of the script. A convincing role needs consistency. Once cracks appear, the audience notices the backstage self peeking through. And then the overcompensation. Heavy repetition. I love you, I love you, I love you. In dramaturgy, this often happens when an actor senses the audience isn't fully buying the act and tries to oversell it. The result is a broken identity. His role is essentially spoiled in the public eye. Instead of a devoted father, some see him as defensive, self-serving, possibly deceptive. Goffman's theory says that once this identity is spoiled, it's very difficult to reestablish credibility. Every future statement is filtered through the lens of suspicion. When his front stage performance falters, Don often tries to repair it by leaning harder into religious language, shifting blame or suspicion outward, using emotional self-preservation to restore sympathy. Bottom line, from a dramaturgical lens, Don's intended role is clear, but the repeated tone mismatches, the self-focus, the contradictions, the overcompensation, and so on cause performance breakdowns that reveal glimpses of the backstage Don. And once those slips are visible, the audience stops fully buying the act. So if I go back to my question about why does Don continually try to do this over and over again, maybe that's just his attempt to, like, maybe he thinks this time they're going to believe me. This time they're going to buy it. Like the little engine that could. but the repetition of, so his act has failed, and he tries again and it fails again, and he tries again and it fails again, but he adjusts it every time. He tries a different he comes at it from a different angle. See, I suppose, which one's going to stick, and it's just not working. I don't know why he doesn't drop it.
It's a need to portray himself to the public as a holy man of God, a good guy. So who's he writing to? Like I've already said, the public. He knows Summer's not coming home, and he's not going to be part, and she's not going to be part of our family. All right, which is sad. Linguistic disposition towards Summer. Who is Summer to him within his language, his disposition, the linguistic disposition? What does the language tell us that his disposition is towards Summer? Well, he did not express concern over her well-being, how she's being treated. He did not plead for her return, anything like that. And that's what we want to see. That's what we see in statements from parents that are de facto innocent, that are literally concerned about their kids. We see all that, the concern for them, and a plea for their return, concern only for them, not about themselves. And we don't hear concern about themselves until they're asked specific questions about how hard has it been for you. And typically then they will say a little bit, but they'll go back to, it's been hard for me, but not nearly as bad as for my sweet daughter, Summer, something like that. And we didn't hear anything like that. So in his mind, he has actually separated Summer from the rest of the family. And it tells me that he likely does not believe that Summer is ever coming home. He has stated that he believes that Summer's in a dungeon somewhere, or that she's been killed and buried.
God, that's so upsetting. Twister says he is trying to convince himself. So you could say Don is on the stage and he's playing his role of a great, caring, sincere, brokenhearted father who does nothing wrong and is super religious and turns to God in hard times. And rather than us being the audience, what if Don is his own audience? What if Don's audience is Don? Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm saying? Then if Don's audience was Don, then that would be him trying to convince himself that that's who he really is, which can work. You yourself can be your own audience. That would work. Maybe that's why, excuse me. Maybe that's why he keeps trying over and over again. Does that make sense? I know that's sort of a abstract thought.
Things like that, but that contradicts this letter right here. So his disposition is not good. Still, we have no plea for that the abductors be found, that the abductors be brought to justice, that the abductors repent and do the right thing and tell the authorities where Summer is. We haven't had any of that. And so why they need to include the Lord's Prayer? Well, like I already mentioned, they need to portray himself as a good guy, God-fearing guy, the smokescreen. And so that's what we have here with.
Yeah. Hi, Janice. I'm all on the same page as I don't know who this guy is. I don't know his name. I'm on the same page with him for most everything here, minus the writing thing, like the capitalization thing. I just can't. But I'm biased because I write that way, and not for a shady reason. I write that way because I was traumatized to write that way. Stupid element. Steve, is that his name? Steve Johnson. So we have, what are we at? An hour and a half. There's one more letter. The letter to the kidnapper. And he does a video about this one too. It's about half an hour long as well. I've watched it already. It's okay. I did an analysis on it as well. So let's do this. An idea. Let me turn this down. Okay. I'm going to pull you over here. Let me exit out of that. So again, I wrote it all out. This is the letter. I how it's written is how it's written. So it starts out, to the person or persons responsible for kidnapping Summer, not only have you broken Summer's heart and taken her away from her mother and father, whom love her very much, but you've ruined her chances to become educated, ruining her life. You have also broke the hearts of her father and her mother and brothers, and in the midst of all the commotion, ruined our lives. You see, the public blames us. I don't know if we'll ever find employment again. Nobody will hire my wife, and I've been fired from a job I've had for 13 years. We may end up losing. Okay, can you hear me? I don't know what's going on with StreamYard. Tell me if you can hear me okay. Please say yes. See if this will go. Yes, no. God, please say yes. Should I do a Dawn? Okay. So, I don't know how much you heard. This is the letter to the kidnapper. Did you guys hear any of it? One day God will hold you accountable for this crime. Okay. So, I typed all this up and I put it into AI and I said, if you were going to take Dawn's letter and adjust it to what, no, you didn't hear the whole thing? Okay, I'll go back and reread it. I don't know what happened. So it goes, to the person or persons responsible for kidnapping Summer, not only have you broken Summer's heart and taken her away from her mother and father, whom love her very much, but you've ruined her chances to become educated, ruining her life. You have also broke the hearts of her father and her mother and brothers, and in the midst of all the commotion, ruined our lives. You see, the public blames us. We don't know if we'll ever find employment again. Nobody will hire my wife, and I've been fired from a job I've had for 13 years. We may end up losing everything. When you took our little girl, you took our very lives. Why don't you give our little girl back before God's wrath descends on you? Ridiculous. You've broken many hearts and more, especially an innocent 5-year-old girl's heart. One day God will hold you accountable for this crime unless you do something to make it right. Is it cutting out again? Ugh, please say no. Is it not working again? Am I not working? It must be a YouTube problem. No, you can't hear me, or no, it's not cutting out. Okay. One day God will hold you accountable for this crime unless you do something to make this right. Please do the right thing and turn our daughter over to the authorities. We're begging you with all of our hearts. Please do the right thing. The letter is signed Summer's father. Summer's father. So, like I was saying, I copied and pasted this over into AI, and I said, if you were going to take Dawn's letter and adjust it to what might be more appropriate, how would it read? So it took Dawn's letter and it rewrote it to what it would be an expected letter. So this is how AI took Dawn's letter, and this is how it says it should read. To the person who has our daughter Summer, please, I am begging you, let her come home. Summer is only 5 years old. She's just a little girl who loves to play, laugh, dance, and be with her family. You've taken her from everything she knows, from the people who love her more than anything in this world. I can't imagine how scared she must be. Every single minute, I picture her wondering where we are, why we're not there to protect her, and it breaks me. We are shattered without her. Her mother is barely holding on. Her brothers miss her terribly. The house is silent now, too quiet without her laughter. We can't sleep. We can't breathe. Our entire lives have stopped. Please, if you have even a sliver of kindness in your heart, do the right thing. Take her somewhere safe. Drop her off at a hospital, a fire station, anywhere someone can help her. You don't have to say a word. Just let her be found. I know people make mistakes. I don't know why this happened or what led to this, but it's not too late to do something good. You can still choose to be merciful. You can still bring her home. Summer is not a headline. She's not a burden. She is our daughter. She is loved. She deserves to grow up, to laugh, to go to school, to live a full and happy life. Please, we are begging you, let her go. Let her come home with hope. Summer's father. That's what AI says. And I was like, that is, I mean, and it's all focused about Summer, and it personalizes her. It gives her an identity. Like you can see her DNA in there. Puts a face to the name. My AI wrote what I just read. Because I asked it, I pasted in Dawn's letter, and I said, if you were going to take Dawn's letter and adjust it to what might be more appropriate, how would it read? That's what AI told me. That's what would be the expectation. So here we go. This one is interesting. So it starts out, to the person or persons responsible for kidnapping Summer. Person or persons, it's classic distancing language. It's an indication of uncertainty. There's no rage, there's no anger, there's no frustration. It's just like, dear person or persons. Kidnapping is a strong word, but there's lack of details. And, abducted, or he kind of uses that interchangeably. And I know Behavior Panel had mentioned something about that. I just don't remember what. He continues on. Not only have you broken Summer's heart and taken her away from her mother and father, whom love her very much, but you've ruined her chances to become educated, ruining her life. Nothing about Summer herself, beyond just functional concepts, No mention of her personality, what she might be going through, her safety, fear, or suffering. It's all from Dawn's perspective. Again. Then we have the use of the word whom, which is incorrect grammar. And to me, it feels like Dawn's trying to sound formal, like well educated. Um, but again, it's centered on them, Dawn and Candace, and not Summer. I don't know if Tim wrote it. It sounds very Timish, but it is what it is. So it continues on. You have also broke the hearts of her father and her mother and brothers, and in the midst of all the commotion, ruined our lives. Ugh, tell me that it's working. I swear, if it doesn't go this time, I don't know what's happening. It's saying StreamYard is saying it's having a problem. Like StreamYard is having a problem. Okay, hopefully we can get through this. So we were talking about this sentence. You have also broke the hearts of her father and mother and brothers, and in the midst of all the commotion, ruined our lives. All the commotion. It's so interesting. All the commotion. Like, compare that to during this nightmare, or while we were searching for her, or it, that thing, that type of thing. But it's just like in the midst of the commotion, her going missing and the subsequent searching and the countless hours that they're supposedly losing sleep and the destruction of their family. I don't think that I would call it commotion. I think that's a pretty bland word, commotion. And again, it's centered around him, Dawn, and the family's pain, and nothing about Summer. I don't have anything else open that I can turn off except Nightbot. We'll get Nightbot out of here. Um, the progression of the thought so far in this letter, this is how his thoughts are going. You hurt Summer, you took her from her parents, you ruined her education, you broke her family's hearts, you ruined our lives. That's where Dawn is moving. That's how Dawn is moving through this. All about them. Then we go on. You see, the public blames us. I don't know if we'll ever find employment again. Nobody will hire my wife, and I've been fired from a job that I've had for 13 years. We may end up losing everything. When you took our little girl, you took our very lives. Again, there's punctuation problems. I just think that's how he writes. There's a feeling of substantial resentment and deflection. There's a focus on how it affects him and Candace. He doesn't say, we're suffering because Summer is gone. He says, we're suffering because the public thinks we did it. Should I say that one more time? He's not saying we're suffering because Summer is gone. He's saying we're suffering because the public thinks we did it. That statement right there, I think you could apply that to every single time that Dawn has been on the news. Every time he's released any kinds of statement, it's all centered around uh, how the public views them and not suffering because Summer is gone. The I know it's gone again. I'm so aware of that. Ugh, this is so frustrating. Now you have to tell me if you can hear me. I changed my internet to like the low quality internet. So I don't know how much we're gonna get done. So I'm gonna give up for right now. And if I can get this to work again, then I'll come back. But we'll shelf this for right now. Does that sound like a plan? I hope so. Because I don't think that I can make this work. I can try one more time. I'm afraid to. I'm so scared. Should we try? Should we try to fix through this or finish? Okay, I don't know how long it's going to stay for. Here's the thing, if it drops away again, I'm all done. Okay? Just so you know, I'm not going to try to come back. I'll be all done. This is so frustrating. Okay. He says, "You see, the public blames us. I don't know if we'll ever find employment again. Nobody will hire my wife. And I've been fired from a job I've had for 13 years. We may end up losing everything. When you took our little girl, you took our very lives." So, as I was saying, there's this substantial resentment, big time. But he doesn't say we're suffering because of summer. Hi, Anna D. He's saying that they're suffering because of what the public thinks we did. This 13-year job thing. Nothing. He doesn't say anything specific about Summer, like her favorite color or her toys or anything about her personality. But he's very specific about how long he's had his job. It's not just like I lost my job. I lost my 13-year job. Why isn't he that specific about Summer? Nothing. Um, we may end up losing everything! Exclamation mark. Now this is pretty strong victim language. Where is the but none of that matters compared to getting Summer back. What matters more? His job or Summer? If losing his job led to her coming home, wouldn't it then be worth it? I know this is going to drop out. I know the internet's going to cut again, just so you know. Then it goes on. God, please stay there. Why don't you give our little girl back before God's wrath descends on you? There's a sudden introduction, an invoking of divine punishment and self-righteous. It's performative. It's performative in nature, like he's acting. He's putting up this big thing. Like he's trying to sound noble and biblical, but there's a lack of warmth and genuine fear. It's like, why don't you when he says, "Why don't you give our little girl back?" It reads like casual, "Why don't you take back your library book? Why don't you go get a couple of groceries?" It's rather than saying, "Give our girl back. Give Summer back before God's wrath descends on you." He frequently, if you guys noticed or really paid attention, Don almost solely, if not 100%, focuses on punishment from God and nothing on forgiveness from God or like getting back right with the Lord or whatever, however you want to say it. It's always like God's going to come get you. Then he continues, you've broken many hearts and more, especially an innocent 5-year-old girl's heart. One day God will hold you accountable for this crime unless you do something to make it right. Again, there's punctuation problems. There's a lack of concern for Summer's physical, emotional well-being. There's no elaboration or explanation on what a broken heart does or is. Think something like, you hurt my feelings. But how? Like, how did you hurt my feelings? You made me cry. You made me feel mad. I was angry. I got sad. There's nothing. It's just like, you've broken her heart. You've broken many hearts. But what does that actually mean? Did you make her sad? Did you make her cry? Is she homesick? Something? And again, the repeated use of divine judgment. There's no hope expressed. There's no plea for a peaceful reunion, just that the person should fix it before God punishes them. Now, this is super interesting. If you take God, the word God, out of it, what he's actually saying is, give her back or something more powerful than me will come after you. The same force will hold you responsible unless you make it right. Do this or else. That's what it is. It's a threat. It's a threat. It's kind of like, do this or my bodyguard's going to take care of you. So religion, the religion part, isn't really the main part. It's just the vehicle he's using to carry the threat. Here's an analogy. There's an envelope, and on the outside it says, hey, I'm religious. But when you open up the envelope and you get the thing inside is still just a threat. It's just dressed up like faith. It's got nothing to do with the faith. He's just using the faith to deliver the message, and the message is a threat. That's what it is. It's just an open threat. So then he continues, please do the right thing and turn our daughter over to the authorities. We're begging you with all our hearts. Please do the right thing. Punctuation problems. It feels like a true emotional plea, but it lacks the expected details. The repetition of do the right thing. As a final paragraph in this whole long letter to the kidnappers, the place where one would expect to find a heartfelt plea, it's absent, noticeably absent. Summer's name is not there. There's no emotional imagery or memory, no urgency about her safety, her fear, her physical or emotional needs, etc. Like, you would expect it to bring it all together, bring the whole thing together. But all he says is just do the right thing, and only gives the option, turn her over to the authorities. Do you think that a kidnapper would want to go to the police station and be like, here you go? Versus the letter that AI wrote, where there was this huge laundry list of places, and it concluded with just anywhere, please, anywhere, put her, give her back any way you can, and walk away. And then he signs it Summer's father. There's apostrophe omission. He signs it with his identity only in relation to Summer. This could be a strategy to appear emotionally bonded, but overall it feels really cold and non-personal. Like, he's wrote this scathing letter to the kidnapper. Why not sign it Dawn Wells? I mean, he's made all these threats in there. He's like, God's going to take you out, Dawn Wells. But yet when he writes the letter to Summer, he signs it thanks Dawn Wells. So that's where I got with that. What's missing in this letter? Any mention of law enforcement efforts or active searching, any description of Summer's personality, her voice, her favorite things, her appearance, her favorite color, any expressed fear that she may be hurt, scared, or worse, any kind of urgent plea for her well-being, any specific memory or connection to Summer, any statement of love directly to Summer. And then the overall takeaways from this, the tone shifts awkwardly. You got religious stuff coming in there, you've got some pleading, and then you got some victimization in there. I'm the victim. The emotional focus is heavily weighted towards his and his wife's suffering, not Summer's. And the language is oddly detached at times, like the word commotion, employment, God's wrath. The structure builds a case for his own victimhood more than it builds a plea for Summer's return. From a statement analysis lens, there's emotional distancing, passive language, deflection, and prioritization of self over victim, all red flags. all of its red flags. So now we're at a pivotal point. We're at a pivotal moment. The thing I have up next is the video. I'm so nervous about running the video because I'm pretty sure it's going to crash out. But I suppose we could try it. Ugh, it's going to be a hard one. I'm going to give it a try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's going to have to be how it is. Tell me you guys are still with me. Please say yes. Thumbs up. Okay. If you guys are still with me, we're going to give it a go. But I'm going to drop it down to 360. Okay, here we go. And again, we'll have to pause it throughout to make sure we're coloring inside the YouTube lines. But he's going to go over the letter that I just did.
A few moments with us today. If you like what you're seeing, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. It would really help us out. Today, I want to discuss another letter that was posted on the Wells family website. This is allegedly a letter written by Summer's father, Don, who is currently in custody for probation violation. Has nothing to do with Summer's disappearance. It is simply a handwritten letter that the news stations and the website, the Wells family website, are reporting came from Don Wells and is a letter to Summer's kidnappers. Keep in mind, last month, Don Wells also issued a handwritten letter, and it was titled A Letter and Prayer for Summer. Okay, so we have the two letters. When I Googled this current letter, this second one, I saw that the news stations were reporting that this letter was written by Don, came from the county jail, and it was in fact a plea from him to the kidnappers. The letter is posted on the Wells family website, and I want to show you the letter.
Yeah, he
So
did.
here's the
Sorry, I forgot to speed him up. I'm like, why is this taking so long? There we go.
letter that is posted on the website,
Jeez.
the Wells family website, and that they're saying came from Don. Now, when I get a letter like this, if I have, especially if it's a handwritten letter, if I have a previous letter, I'm obviously going to compare the two letters and see if it's the same type of verbiage and look for consistencies or any inconsistencies. I want to see that the two letters are consistent and congruent with each other. And I want to know what the priority of this letter is. What's the purpose of writing this letter? I think it's very appropriate for a parent to address the kidnappers if their child was kidnapped. I think it's very appropriate. And there's certain type of language that we expect to hear in a letter like this. If you haven't seen what I posted on the first letter, go back and take a look at that after you watch this video. You'll find that pretty interesting. As I look at the verbiage in this letter, there's some things that stand out to me and come to my mind. What I want to do first is I want to read this letter in its entirety. And as I read this, I want you to think about what is it in this letter that stands out to you. After we read the whole thing, what is it that stands out? What do you remember about it and why? That's what we're looking for. And so what the letter says is, to the person or persons responsible for kidnapping Summer, not only have you broken Summer's heart and taken her away from her mother and father, whom love her very much, but you ruined her chances to become educated, ruining her life. You have also broken the hearts of her father and mother and brothers, and in the midst of all the commotion, ruined our lives.
Yeah, right. Cisco says, I didn't know Don Wells had such eloquent handwriting, right? That's why I say it. That's just the way that this is the same person. There's just no way.
You see, the public blames us. I don't know if will, spelled W-I-L-L, ever find employment again. Nobody will hire my wife, and I've been fired from a job I've had for 13 years. We may end up losing everything. He's putting exclamation marks, whoever's writing this. When you took our little girl, you took our very lives. Why don't you give our little girl back before God's wrath descends on you? You've broken many hearts and more especially an innocent 5-year-old girl's heart. One day, God will hold you accountable for this crime unless you do something to make this right. Please do the right thing and turn our daughter over to the authorities. We're begging you with all our hearts, please do the right thing. Summers, and it's signed Summers' father. Okay? So that is the letter in its entirety. As I read this letter, it seemed to me that the plea in this letter was obviously to turn Summer over, but why were they issuing the plea? Why was the plea being issued? And the answer is, and I think a lot of you caught it, in the midst of all the commotion ruined our lives. You see, the public blames us. I don't know if we'll ever find employment again. Nobody will hire my wife, and I've been fired from a job I've had for 13 years. We may end up losing everything. When you took our little girl, you took our very lives. Why don't you give our little girl back before God's wrath descends on you? That is in relation to their lives being ruined. How much of this letter is a plea for their lives to not be ruined because of employment issues versus care and concern for Summer? Now, I know that someone watching this is going to say, well, wait a minute. He mentioned that a plea for Summer, and let me address that. He said, you've broken Summer's heart and taken her away from her mother and father, whom love her very much, but you've ruined her chances to become educated, ruining her life. This is something that has finality in the language. You've ruined her chances at becoming educated. In other words, it's done, it's over with. And what that tells me is that the person that wrote this knows or believes that Summer is not going to come back. She won't ever have that chance at having an education. Okay? The plea is not there for Summer. The plea is for them to be able, for the public to view them in a better light so that they can be.
Okay, quick question here. If she was kidnapped, Summer was kidnapped. Okay, of course, one could assume that she's not getting the proper education. She's not going to school. But I don't know personally that I would rank that as one of the top things that she's missing out on. I would personally say something like she's missing out on her friends. She's missing out on, everyday things. Seeing her puppy, playing with her toys, seeing her brothers. Those are the things she's also missing out on. I don't know why he only focuses on her education. I mean, yeah, she's missing out on school, but why only that? Why is that the only thing? And why is that the most important thing? Appy Blue says education over being with her parents and brothers. Exactly. I'm the victim in this case.
Employed, that to have to soften their hearts, for the public to soften their hearts for the Wells family, for Don and his wife, so that they can be employed. The language still is void of concern for Summer. What do we know that's going on here in the current moment that they're experiencing? Well, employment issues. Where's the concern for Summer, what she's feeling, what she's experiencing right now? It's not there. It's her chances of being educated, which I guess that's can be a concern, but my concern, if it was my little girl, is what she's experiencing right now, if I have a belief that she's still alive. Now, this is coming from the father, and fathers have a tendency to process a little bit quicker than a mother would, okay? And so what we really need to do is go back to the very first interview that they gave with the news media to see what their linguistic disposition is towards her at that time. And that's going to be my next video, so stay tuned for that. But everything after that first interview has been slightly contaminated because they have received criticism. They've been asked questions by the police. They've been asked questions by the media, by Dr. Phil. They've been interviewed by by experts, and they know what everyone else is thinking. And so when they issue something now, it's typically in response to what they believe everyone else is thinking about them. So it's a little bit contaminated. That's why if you want to know what the really is going on in their mind, you want the purest snapshot of what's in their brain, what their perception is of summer, you go back to the very first interview that they gave, and assuming that they were asked clean questions, and a clean question is simply, tell me what happened. And their response to that will be a clean statement, and it will accurately reflect their perception of summer. And so that's going to be the next video. I can't wait to get that one posted for you. This letter here is a plea for the return of employment. Okay, that's what this one is. That's what stood out. And as I read through the whole letter, that's the part that stood out. I know that a lot of you are thinking, yeah, that stood out to me too. Why is it that the other part about the things that he said about summer aren't really sticking that much? It's because they're unnecessary, they're repetitive, and they're not needed. It's already assumed that a parent would love their daughter so much and that their heart would be broken. It's just one of those things that we already assume, and so we're just going to go from there. And we expect the language to reflect that in the plea for taking care of summer at this point in time, right now, what she's experiencing, what she's going through, make sure that she loves swings, she loves being outdoors, so make sure you get her a swing, and make sure that you take care of her and that you're loving her, and by all means, turn her over, bring her back to us. Please find it in your heart to bring her back to us. We love her. We want her home. And I know we have a little bit of that, and that's natural. And I expect to have a little bit of that, but we don't have the majority of that. That's not what is the overall plea to the kidnappers? It's, you've ruined our lives. We're not employed, and the public blames us. And so we want our lives put back together. And if you don't believe me, well, we love her. That's why that's there. If you don't believe me, we love her. You've broken many hearts, and more especially an innocent 5-year-old girl's heart. What this letter reminds me of is not only a plea for employment, but it's a plea for themselves. And that's what the overall petition to the kidnappers is. It's a plea for themselves, not necessarily summer. There's a little bit of that in there, and I expect that everything that they issue from the get-go, from after the first thing after that first interview, will be in response to what the perception that they know the public has. And so it's going to be a bit contaminated. And they learn. They're on social media all the time, and they learn from shows like this and Chris McDonough in the Interview Room, and several others. They've learned from being on Dr. Phil. It educates them each time they do something like that, or they see something, they watch this, they're going to be educated. And I expect that the next time that they issue something, it's going to be a little bit different. Now, I want to take a moment. I want to compare the two letters. Here are both letters that were posted on the Wells